Hey guys, it's Lucky. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to continue my journey to dive into all MMOs to find out what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and how they stack up against one another. This month, I've been diving deep into Guild Wars 2 and its new expansion, End of Dragons, to see what makes Guild Wars, well, Guild Wars. Every once in a while I'm playing an MMO, I can't help but ask myself, why aren't more MMOs doing this? Why don't more MMOs handle this system this way? Then I add that thing to my list of things the perfect MMO would include. While playing Guild Wars 2, I found not one, but 3 things the perfect MMO should have. By that I mean 3 things that it just does better than any other MMO I've played. So let's talk about them. And a big thank you to Guild Wars 2 who has kindly sponsored this video. So let's talk about my thoughts after spending the last 3 weeks binging Guild Wars 2 and more recently its newest expansion. If you want to try Guild Wars 2, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. You can play the base game for free. That includes 80 levels and all base game content. Alright, let's dive into those 3 things Guild Wars 2 does better than everyone else. If you're familiar with Guild Wars, you think I'm going to say mounts. Why? Because each type of mount has unique mobility abilities? Because some work on land, some work in the water, some work in the sky? Because each mount can be leveled up and improved upon so that they jump higher, jump farther, or fly longer? Or because you don't have to buy a new mount skin from the cash shop whenever you want to change the color of your mount because you can dye your mount any color anytime you want for free? Well, you're right. That is definitely one of the 3 things Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons does better than any other MMO. And it's not just the mounts themselves, but the zones they enable that make the mounts amazing. Thanks to the mounts in Guild Wars 2, they can design some of the most massive and complex maps from any MMO I've ever played. Take for example, the new zone in End of Dragons, New Koenig City. It is huge. It's easily the largest city I've ever explored in an MMO, and it heavily rewards you for exploring this area. There are mastery points, hero points, and all of your usual achievements tucked away in various locations throughout the city, oftentimes requiring you to find your way to the top of a skyscraper to get the reward. And once you get there, you can choose to jump back down to ground level or glide on over to the top of another high rise. It's just fun, and it's literally a zone that couldn't exist in most MMOs because they simply cannot support that level of verticality and player engagement in the zone's design. It all works together to make you feel like you're actually in a 3D environment instead of a flat world. All too often, the journey from A to B in MMOs is completely overlooked by the developer. It's often seen by devs as a way to pad playtime, to stretch out a quest, or just as often, they ignore it completely. This is tragic because we spend so much time going from A to B in MMOs, more time than almost any other aspect of the game. It should not be ignored but focused on. The journey from A to B can make or break an MMO, and it has. Getting from A to B in Guild Wars 2 is fun. As the saying goes, it's about the journey, not the destination. ArenaNet didn't ignore the journey. They asked themselves how they could be better at it than anyone else, and now they are. This also segues into the second thing Guild Wars 2 does better than any other MMO: open world boss fights, or as it calls them, meta events. And no, I'm not talking about that meta. This is a different kind of meta event. Let me explain. One of the reasons Guild Wars 2 does so well with its world events is the fact that it also does so well with scale. Things are bigger, structures are bigger, bosses are bigger, and because we have a plethora of different mounts and a glider to get around, we can navigate these bigger places to fight these bigger bosses. Literally, all 150 people in a zone can participate in the event when they are up. Yes, I said up to 150 people. And guess what? When you see the size of these bosses, you'll completely understand why 150 people would team up to take them down. Oftentimes, you are fighting dragons the size of skyscrapers. You are using flying mounts, gliders, wind currents, and in the case of End of Dragons world event, a hope and a prayer, because at launch, that sucker is tough. After doing the Mordremoth world event from a previous expansion, I thought there's no way they can top this. This is unreal. In other MMOs, open world boss fights are usually 1 or 2 dozen people standing around beating on a boss. But in Guild Wars 2, open world events are spectacles. Groups work together to kick the event off by splitting up and completing various objectives around the map. Once completed, they all converge in one location to take down the mountain-sized boss. In End of Dragons, they added another one of these world events, and again, it's a spectacle, somehow even more epic than the ones before it. As a new player to the game, these are very, very cool. The player turnout for these events is unlike anything I've seen in an MMO before. Your screen is packed full of players. The new meta event in End of Dragons is no exception. The scale and scope of this event is unlike anything I've ever seen in an MMO before. I'm playing it on the screen for you right now. I mean, just look at the size of the boss, the stage it's fought on, and the number of players involved. Everyone on that screen worked together to start this boss fight, and once they all converged, they fought it. It is absolute madness, and it is actually quite the challenge, especially now while the event is brand new and a lot of players are still trying to learn the mechanics. Every MMO should look at Guild Wars 2's approach to the open world events and ask themselves, what can we do to create something that is that epic in the overworld? Because Guild Wars 2 has set the bar for this type of content, and now it's everyone else's turn to try to reach it. But ArenaNet didn't just get the encounter right, it also got the reward structure right. All too often you see these open world encounters like this left vacant and bare after the community's done them once or twice. But in Guild Wars, the community is actively battling it out with these dragons every day. They nailed the encounter, they nailed the rewards. Guild Wars 2 has ruined me for open world boss fights in other MMOs. The third thing Guild Wars 2 does better than any other MMO is a lot simpler than the first two. It's one that any MMO could do or could start doing anytime they want. The final item on the list is voice acting. Not just voice acting the NPCs you talk to, but also giving your character a voice and a voice actor. It used to be that everything was a dialogue box in all the RPGs and MMOs, and then the genres grew up a little and gave NPCs voice actors. Now the genre continues to mature even more, and we're starting to see our characters get voiced by actors as well. Guild Wars 2 is using talented voice actors to voice not just the NPCs you interact with, but your character as well. Your character is able to express themselves, their emotions, in a way that you don't normally get to do in MMOs. Your character has a voice in the conversation, literally a voice, as all of your dialogue lines are voice acted. It's a small thing that I had never really thought about until I had it, and once again, it's going to be hard to go back to being a voiceless husk whenever I'm interacting with NPCs in other MMOs. Watching NPCs talk at me while my character says nothing or nods his head is just not the same. Voice acting of our characters is a great touch, and it really helps to immerse you in the story and the tone of the moment. Combine all of this with the fact that End of Dragons features cinematic cutscenes for key moments in the story, and you've now got one of the best story experiences in the genre. You can really tell that ArenaNet takes the RPG part of the MMORPG seriously and are doing everything they can to deliver the best story experience possible. From hiring voice actors for NPCs to hiring them for your character to acting out the cutscenes for pivotal moments. This is how a story should be told. And these are my top 3 favorite things from Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. What are your thoughts? What aspects from your favorite MMO do you wish you could have in every MMO? Let me know down in the comments below. If you want to try Guild Wars 2, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. You can play the base game for free. That includes 80 levels and all base game content. As always, a big thank you to my YouTube members. If you want to become a YouTube member, be sure to click the link down in the description to find out more. If you ever want to hang out with someone else who loves MMOs, feel free to swing by my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/luckyghost. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.